Okay, just started recording. One moment, show you my full screen. Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. Let me know if there's any sound issues. Okay, I hope that you had a good midterm exams. The results seems promising. I mean, I won't release the midterms score yet, but I will try to upload it to the EduSoft as soon as possible. But in general, if I remember, the average should be around sort of like 75% or so. So some of you managed to get up to around sort of like the high 80, as well as some in the 90s. A few got below 50%, but in general, average around like 70, 75%, which is relatively quite good when it comes to midterm exams. Today, rather, I think some of you, I might have miscommunicated with you guys that the presentation is today. I will give you an extra week to prepare for the presentation. We will do the individual assignment presentation next week. Okay, so you have an extra week to prepare. Apologize for the miscommunication to some of you. For those who are still unsure and so on, in terms of the individual presentation, these are the individuals who will do the presentation. So you have Cocoon, Lush, Tesla, Samsung, Adidas, Body Shop, Uniqlo, Tiki, Foot Long, Apple, Muji, Netflix, Rolex, LinkedIn, Absolute Vodka, and Gucci. And we'll do it in that particular order. You don't need to send in your presentation to me. As long as you have your presentation on the day and do the presentation, then we will reward you with a maximum of up to 10%. Yeah, so 5% will be given to you once you do the presentation, and the class will score you for your presentation skill sets. Yeah, up to a maximum of 10% in total. 5% will be given to you if you do the presentation, and another extra 5% will be given to you by the class. In terms of those who do not want to do the presentation, even though you're in this list, as long as you either mention it to me beforehand or when we call your name next week, and you don't do the presentation, or you just say that you don't do the presentation, then that should be okay. So as long as you have the presentation on the day and do the presentation on the day, we will give you 5% for the actual presentation, and extra 5% for the class will give you in terms of your presentation quality. Okay, so today we'll cover the rest of business model. We kind of covered last, just before the midterm exams, we kind of covered a lean startup and the beginning of blue ocean strategy. Today we'll try to finish the rest of the Fantastic Five, which is disruptive innovation, as well as business model canvas, and more more modern kind of methodology is the design thinking. As you see, the design thinking is trending very fast on Google search itself compared to the other Fantastic Four. Hopefully, if we finish by then, we will, if we have time, we will cover Android apps. Yeah, so we'll cover how to do your own Android apps in relatively straightforward. It probably will take about 15 minutes or so to do an Android apps. In general, it just drag and drops different widgets together, and pretty much by the end of the session, which might only take about 15, 20 minutes or so, you will end up with an Android app itself. Pretty much you can do the same for iOS apps as well. In general, doing apps is not, or Android apps or iOS apps, it's not that difficult as such, yeah. Which you will see later on if we have time to cover that as well. Okay, let's jump in and just remind ourselves in terms of modern business strategy. These are the modern business strategy which, in general, modern startups, tech startups, and so on tends to use. Each one has its pros and cons, its advantages as well as disadvantages, and pretty much not every business model will fit your business plan as such. So in innovation, there is no one size fit all. So rather than looking at what is the most popular or the most highest trending and so on, you should be looking for the business model which matches your requirement more so. So rather than popular tools, company or startups like yourself should be looking at what are the right tools for your business itself rather than what is trending or what is popular per se. And you have quite a good choice. You have a good choice in terms of at least one of these, or maybe a combination of these fantastic 5 put together. So let's briefly review what is lean startup and what its strength. In general, when you guys do your business plan in terms of eBiz Hub, you do the plan itself, but in general, most of you will not plan for failure within your business plan. Yeah, so we talk about startup having a very high chance of failure. Typically, 90% will fail within their first year. But in general, a lot of businesses in general don't have failure built into their business plan, even though the chance of failure is very, very high. So what Lean Startup does is that we expect to fail. Failure is not a major issue. Similar to what you kind of seen if you have done so already in your clean tech assignment. The first few attempts of the simulation, the business game simulation or clean tech assignment which you do, you will fail. That's okay. When you start off doing something, you're always going to make mistakes, but you learn from your mistake. And the more attempt you try at your clean tech assignment, the more time you play the business game simulation assignment, the better you'll get at managing your company. And pretty much in the real world, it's the same thing. And the more experience you obtain from running a business, the better you become in terms of a founder or a business manager as such. So what Lean Startup does is that we expect to fail. That's okay. As long as you fail quick, and not only quick, but as long as you fail as cheaply as possible. If you fail quick and cheaply, then you can afford to play the game more than once. It's very similar to clean tech assignment. It's the same thing. The task of the exercise is not about your first attempt, and we kind of expect you to be perfect in your first attempt. No, that's not the point. The main aim of the clean tech assignment is for you to try the game as many times as possible and learn from your mistake, improve from your previous attempt, learn from your experience. And that's what lean startups are pretty much strategy are doing, is that you're going to fail the first few attempts, but learn from your mistakes. You're going to produce some kind of ideas, try to produce it as cheaply or build it as cheaply as possible. You build a minimum viable product, so a product which has the least amount of resources invested in it as possible, because you're going to fail. Yeah, it's okay. First few attempts is okay. Version 1 is pretty bad, but you're going to improve on the next version, and so on and so on. So build a minimum viable product, launch it into the marketplace, measure it, test it, find out where your mistake is, collect a lot of data, learn from your mistake, and then pretty much change or improve on your product or on your service, and then build the next minimum viable product. So it's pretty much similar to what you do in your clean tech assignment. You attempt, you learn from your mistake, you improve from your mistake, and then you start over again. So hence, lean startups, the main point of lean startup is plan failure in place into your business plan. Make sure when you do fail, you want to fail as quickly and as cheaply as possible. In that way, you can afford to try again and again until you hit on to a winner. And pretty much, we kind of seen these happening quite often in the real world itself. I mean, we talk about some of the more successful businesses like Jeff Bezos and Amazon and Bill Gates and Microsoft, or Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and so on. What we don't know is that all the companies which they fail before they hit on something that is successful. And kind of lean startup will be an amazing business model for them to follow if they had that way back in their own time. But in general, these successful businesses have failed in the past, and a lot of these business managers have learned from their mistakes in the past. Yeah. So in general, you build successful companies from your experience in terms of failure. And that's the main point of lean startup. Before the midterm, we also have time to cover the blue ocean strategy as well. Blue ocean strategy, it's slightly different from the lean startup in the sense that here, instead of competing in a red ocean full of other competitors, so here we have this fish bowl where there's too many fishes in the bowl. You want to be this fish which jump out of the so-called red ocean into this so-called blue ocean, where there are no competition at all. And throughout the world, or the real world itself, we kind of seen these things do exist. In terms of red ocean, here, people either compete on low value or low cost, similar to kind of like the China strategy, low quality, low value, low cost. Or another red ocean is a high value, high cost. So like Apple, for example, or US products, for example, is high quality, high cost. Less so people in general tends to move away from these kind of red ocean, like the high value, high cost, or low value, low cost. They don't realize that there are alternatives, such as this so-called blue ocean in the middle, where you compete on just enough quality for just enough cost. So in general, I mean, good example would be like, say, product from Korea, for example. their cosmetics, their technology and so on is not as high cost as American products or Japanese product. And it's not as cheap as Chinese product, for example. In terms of quality, it's in between as well. It's not high quality like American products, but then it is not low quality like Chinese product itself as well. So Korean cosmetics in general tends to fall into a niche, an area on its own, the so-called blue ocean. It's not competing with the Chinese cosmetic or even European or American cosmetic. And it operates in a niche on its own because of that. And hence it's in this so-called blue ocean, its product, and has been quite successful overall because they're not competing directly with the low cost, low value in terms of Chinese products, or the high cost, high value in terms of the European cosmetic or American cosmetic. And what we kind of learn from blue ocean is any business strategy, once you boil it down to the different dimension, let's just open up an example. Once you systematically analyze it and break it down to its various different components, like what the example which we looked into, which is Nintendo, Xbox, and mobile apps and so on. Once you decompose it down to its elements and so on, you can always strategize your business strategy to differentiate yourself away from the other competitors or the red ocean. So here in this particular case here, you can see that Nintendo is the blue, Xbox is the green line, smartphones, game apps and so on are the orange line. You can see here, in terms of game quality, it's low quality, low cost when it comes to smartphones, apps, and so on. Whereas Xbox, in general, it tends to be high quality, high cost, or high values. Nintendo tried to play or differentiate themselves away from the low quality, low cost of the smartphone games, and not only that, from the high quality, high cost in terms of the Xbox One console. So you can see here, Nintendo tried to, at least in the game availability, it's not highly available like smartphones and so on. But not only that, it's somewhere in the middle when it comes to voice control. Because in these two dimensions and quite a few other dimensions, it's already differentiate itself. Then, in general, it can compete in other markets. In general, it's already in the blue ocean on its own. It's somewhere in between and away from the red line or the orange line and the green line. Hence, it can pretty much compete, can choose to compete in various different dimensions. In this case, it's choose to compete with the Xbox when it comes to game quality, and it choose to compete with the Xbox when it comes to motion control. But it try not to be the Xbox. That's why it's in between, and not only that, away from the other two red ocean as such. So in general, with blue ocean, and with any business strategy and so on, you can always create your own blue ocean by decomposing your business's strengths and weaknesses by various different dimensions, and then choose which one, which dimension you need to be strong at or weak at or somewhere in the middle for you to be able to differentiate yourself away from the so-called red ocean, the high value, high cost, or the low value, low cost. And that's the blue ocean. Next, we will cover the disruptive innovation. There's a graph missing for some reason. I don't know why you cannot see this. Maybe we need to look on the web. Apologize for that. I think there's, I think on PowerPoint you should be able to see this. Maybe let me see if I can open up on PowerPoint. Download where you, yeah, okay, Microsoft PowerPoint. It's missing here as well for some reason. I must have accidentally deleted it for some reason. Never mind. We can always search it on the web anyway. It's not like it's any different. Innovation. Let's choose a good graph. Let's see, what about this one? Most demand, use, high quality, medium quality. Most demand customers, sustainable innovation, disruptive innovation. Okay, let's take this one here. Copy image and paste it into here. For some reason it's missing. Don't know why. It shouldn't be missing. Okay, so what disruptive innovation is, if you look at this graph in one dimension, let me make it a little bit bigger. You have, in terms of time, is the x-axis. In terms of the z-axis, that's going up and down, is the amount of innovation. So in general, most people will accept some amount of innovation. Too much innovation isn't good, and too few of innovation isn't good either. Yeah, so there is a slope to it. So a certain amount of innovation is good. If the slope is too steep, that means too much innovation has been introduced into the market. Or if the slope's too flat or even negative, it means that you are going backward and you're not doing innovation at all. So in general, customers at least has some demand for new widgets or new innovation when it comes to innovative or new products in general. So we have this kind of demand curve here. Yeah, the majority of the customers will want it to some level innovation. So given some amount of time, the perfect amount of innovation should be around the middle here. Yeah, less so customers will want too much innovation, and less so customers will want too few of amount of innovation. But the issue with a lot of very successful companies, and we know quite a lot of very successful companies throughout history, such as the IBM, the HP, the Dell computer, the BlackBerry, the Nokia, and so on. Each one of these very respectable company, and once upon a time, they were very, very successful. But because they are successful, it is one of the problems which they face. So they will lose market shares. So lots of market shares of very well respected companies, as well as very well managed companies throughout the world, throughout history, such as the IBMs, the HP, the Dell, the Nokia, the BlackBerry, and so on. Because of how respectful they are, and not only that, how well they're managed, sometimes they overmanage their business. A lot of these companies are high-tech companies. They basically oversupply the amount of innovation given what the market wants. So in this case here, you have some kind of sustainable innovation. But if you have too much innovation, it will move towards this area of the curve where there are less demand. You want to have an innovation somewhere in the middle where the majority of the customers want, yeah, will be able to accept that amount of innovation. You don't want few and away from the amount of what customers demanding, and you don't want too much where there are too many, only the early adopters are using your innovation up here. Majority of the market tends to operate at a slower speed. And hence, because they're exactly good at what they're doing, these high-tech companies, in general, they tend to deliver too much. They tend to deliver too much in terms of innovation, and they basically miss where the main market is, and basically they are supplying their technology to so-called early adopters, which is few and far in between. So in general, good managers face a dilemma because by doing exactly what they're good at doing, the very thing that need them to do to succeed in running their business, sometimes they actually ignore the risk that by ignoring their rivals who uses disruptive innovation, they will fall behind. So disruptive innovation are the one which spend not a lot of money at first, but supply just enough innovation for the market for what they need. So these are like so-called sustainable innovation. Over-innovated will the curve will move away from this good point here. And disruptive innovation are the one which deliver the right amount of innovation at the right time, which is around this kind of period. So in general, a lot of these companies, I mean, you guys must have remember the period when Google Glasses first came out. It was an interesting innovation and so on. If you don't know what Google Glasses, let's just do a web search. Google Glass is this glass here which has a monitor or a screen in front of your eyes. So you wear it like a glass, but it acts like a computer right in front of your eyes, and you can control this computer screen with a joystick and buttons at the side by your ear, so you can control it. The technology is interesting and all, but it just happened to be too much innovation for what the market needs during its time. So in general, Google over-deliver the amount of innovation what the market demands, and hence it's wasn't so successful. So hence you don't see everyone wearing Google glasses nowadays. But because Google has invested in a lot of money into these research and so on, and a lot of the equipments and a lot of the technology are now available, you have startups like yourself, instead of investing in all the research which Google has done, and there's a lot of money invested in terms of developing the Google Glass itself, as a startups and so on, by choosing the right timing, you can pick up where Google has dropped it off. So in other words, for you, investment's not going to be a lot because the technology is out there, the equipment's out there, and by choosing the right timing, you can deliver exactly at the right time to when the market most needed, or most needed what the products of a wearable Google Glass is all about. Yeah, and it may not be today, it may not be next year, it may be it's another 2 or 3 years into the future before the market will accept something equivalent to Google Glass, for example. So hence, disruptive innovation is not about a groundbreaking innovation, anything like that. Majority of times, technology companies tend to over-innovate. And once they over-innovate, they tend to fail. But their technology is still there. And in general, a lot of startups become successful is because of their timing. They just take the technology, which is already there, which has already been invested by these successful technology companies, and bring it to market at the right time. When the market needs it, you deliver the product then. Majority of the work has done for you by these groundbreaking technology companies anyway, because they just have the wrong timing. And that's what, throughout history, a lot of technology companies tends to fail, is that they tends to over-deliver by being successful at what they're doing, which is technology. They over-deliver what the market needs, and hence open up a lot of opportunity for like for yourself and startups to take those technology and deliver to the market at the right time. So that's disruptive innovation. The fourth of the Fantastic Five, which we will cover, and we'll go into that later on, is the business model canvas. In general, we will see this later on. Business model canvas in general are useful once you have a business or you have an idea what you're going to be doing. Yeah, things like the disruptive innovation, blue ocean, as well as lean startup are good at the early stage when it comes to businesses or startups, whereas business model canvas are good at the later stage. Once you understand what you're going to do in your business, then a business model canvas becomes useful. So business model canvas or business model generation emphasize the idea that once a business model for a business goal become apparent, once you know what the business is all about, the new business is ready to launch, and hence you can innovate and improve on your business. And that's what the strength of the business model canvas is all about. We'll go through business model canvas in details in a moment. And the centerpiece for business model canvas or business model generation is the canvas itself, which we'll go into details later on. So business model canvas, very useful once you understand what your business is all about. So it's like for later stage startup rather than early stage. It does not help you strategize in terms of idea or product or service, but it can help you in terms of understanding or decompose a very complex business down into something which is a lot more simpler for you to be able to strategize and plan and cut costs and increase customer satisfactions and communications and sales and marketing and so on. And that's what business model canvas is more useful for in terms of strategizing later stage businesses in general. We'll move on, yeah, but we'll go into details, business model canvas in details later on. Okay, the last of the Fantastic Five, or the fifth of the Fantastic Five, is design thinking. Design thinking is more like take the best of all the previous business model from lean startups to blue ocean to a disruptive innovation to business model canvas. It kind of like take the best of everything, put it into one, and then basically call it design thinking. So traditionally, so let's look at the first graph or flow chart. Traditionally, 20th century tech startups or businesses in general. Let's see if I can zoom in. Let me figure out how to zoom in on this one. It's not too clear. That doesn't work. Is there a zoom up here? Maybe I do full screen. How do I do full screen here? Not layout, theme, transition, change the background. Maybe close this. Is it F5? Nope. Do you have any menu? View, zoom. Maybe this is what I want. 200. Okay. Good. So 20th century tech startups in general, I think most of you make these mistakes. Is that once you start your e-biz assignment, you think that it is the job of the founders or the group of founders to have some kind of product vision. And then you build, once you have some kind of idea, then you build that product. And then once you have a product or a service, you go out there and find customers. So that is very old-fashioned kind of thinking. So launch timing driven by the business plan itself, and then you hire staff to help service the service or to manufacture the product, and then you go out there and you find your customers. Modern business in general, I mean, in this particular business model, they do not have plan in terms of what do you do when you fail, for example. So in the 21st century, in this particular century, we have lean startup. Yeah, with lean startup, it's slightly different. Same again, you have a group of founders, your group, figure out a product and have some kind of vision. But this time you build some kind of minimum viable product, realizing that potentially you can fail. So you build the cheapest available product as possible so that at least you can launch into the market to get information and data so you can improve it in version 2 and so on. You want to be able to get to maybe version 10. That's when you are as close to perfection as possible. So hence, you try to build something which is relatively quite cheap, a minimum viable product, MVP. You launch into the marketplace, you collect a lot of data, you iterate, you improve on version 2, and you do the same version 3, version 4, version 5, and so on until you get closer and closer to perfection. So in general, once you launch into the marketplace, maybe you have good enough data. Launch timing driven by the customer's validation rather than your business plan in the old-fashioned way of launching a business. And when you are successful, when you hit version 10, close to reality as possible, then you go out and hire staff as well as launch your product into the real market itself. So production stage is the next step after you go through all these iterations until you hit on what is the final version going to be. So hence that is the so-called lean startup which we cover, the first of the 5 Fantastic 5. But with design thinking, they actually take it a step further. It's not about the founder. Lean startup fail, or lean startup make the mistake thinking that the market or the customers is the founder themselves. That is not true. If you create a product or some kind of vision for the founders, most likely the only customer is going to be the founders themselves. You want the market to drive the company or the product or the vision itself, rather than the founders that drive the product or the vision. So with design thinking, they take it a little step further. Instead of putting the group of founder into the equation, they remove it totally. Yeah, it's not the founder. The founder helps to manage the operation and the process and so on, but it is the customers which is the most important. So with the design thinking, they do away with the founder's ideas of product and vision and talk to the customers initially as well, and design a product around the customers. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the founders. Founders will just help to implement the process. But with design thinking, you need to know what does the customer need. Once you have the customer need, then you build some kind of minimum viable product, thinking that chance of success is going to be quite low. So I don't expect it to succeed after version 1. I need to be able to get to maybe not version 10 like Lean Startup. Maybe by the time I reach version 5, I will be, or the product will be as successful in itself already. So because of this first step, design a product or service given what the customers needs, I'm ahead of the Lean Startup. Lean Startup, basically you start off with the founder's idea and then you try to figure out what does the customer need. But this time around with design thinking, you start off with what the customer needs, and then you build a minimum viable product around the customer's needs. So you are 2 or 3 steps ahead of Lean Startup already. And the next part is just like Lean Startup. You build a minimum viable product, you iterate, you pivot, and you collect data, you learn from your mistakes, you improve, you iterate version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, version 5. Maybe you don't need to get all the way to version 10 because you start off at a head start compared to Lean Startup, and maybe you only need to hit onto version 5 and you hit perfection already. So hence it's out into the marketplace much earlier compared to Lean Startup, and you fail less. Instead of 10 version up here with Lean Startup, in design thinking, you might only need about 5 iterations of a minimum viable product. Once you hit perfection, you launch the product. Not only that, you hire staff. Yeah, you don't hire staff back here. Here is just a minimum amount of staff or only the founders themselves to do the minimum viable product as well as to collect data. Once you validate all the products itself, you start to hire staff and then you reduce in terms of volume. So design thinking is very similar to Lean Startup and Blue Ocean. It takes the best bits and pieces from Lean Startup and Blue Ocean, but it tries to maintain a stronger focus on design and innovation. And design and innovation are built around the customer's needs, not what the founder's needs is. You're not designing a product for the founders, you're trying to design a product for the customers. And it is constantly improving the products itself. Similar to the Lean Startup, you build minimum viable products, you try to figure out how it's different to what the market needs, and then you iterate by pretty much constantly improving the product or the service so it fits the customer's needs and wants more perfectly. However, rather than improving the products by taking problems and working towards a solution, it focused more on the beginning steps as well, on building the product through new ideas as well as possible enhancement as well. So it has this empathize steps where you are not the founders and you try to empathize what the customers needs. And not only that, it develops a deep understanding of the challenge, to zoom in for you guys. It tries to develop a deeper understanding of what the challenge and what is the problem or what's the customer needs is all about. And then it clearly define, clearly articulate the problems you want to solve, as well as the first step is about ideation, brainstorming, for potential solutions and selecting and developing the right solution for the customers. And then the following step, which is pretty much the Lean Startup. So prototyping the minimum viable product, design a prototype or a series of prototype and minimum products, viable products to test all or part of your solutions. And then you go out and launch into the marketplace and test and collect data. So engage, continuous, short cycle innovation, proceed or process to continually improving your design, and you loop relentlessly. And hopefully you will loop less compared to only Lean Startup, because like what we kind of seen before, the Lean Startup, the first step is the idea of the founder. Whereas design thinking, you want to empathize with the customers. You want to, at the outset, try to design a product for what the customers needs rather than what the founders needs. So you'll be a few steps ahead of the Lean Startup methodology. But in general, not all these fantastic 5 are ideal for your situation. Each businesses or each group of founders are in different part of the process itself. So you need to figure out which part of the process you are in and use the right tools for your particular situation. So choosing the right modern business model or the right innovation method, you need to do it at the right time. Yeah, it isn't an end-to-end process. Different business model works well at different period of your startup. So for early stage itself, when you starting off, try to figure out a product or a service to launch into the marketplace, these are the so-called better business model which fits you. So things like creativity and ideation as well as blue ocean and design thinking, they are very strong at early stage when it comes to startup. Yeah, so most of you, when you're doing your e-biz assignment, most of you are pretty much in this particular area here. But once your business is up and running, once you have some ideas and so on, then the mid part of your the mid game, the blue ocean and the design thinking are also strong. Yeah, so blue ocean and design thinking are strong at the early stage and the mid stage itself. Same as lean startup and agile and methodologies and so on, which we haven't really covered, but this is a software method. These are very strong mid-stage in your startup. And at the later stage, late stage are the business model canvas. Yeah, so in general, business model canvas are not that useful once you do not know what you're doing, when you basically starting out, or even useful during the mid stage as well. Business model canvas is more useful once you understand what you are doing, what you know. Once you pass the early stage and the mid stage, when you're in the later stage of your startup, business model canvas becomes more important. It becomes a lot more useful. We will cover business model canvas in the next step anyhow. So we'll go into details why it's a lot better in the later stage. And the things which I noticed at the IU, a lot of these startup competition, which happens at the IU, in general, they basically forces you to have a business model canvas. But in general, like I said, if you are at the early stage, business model canvas are not that useful, and it's not appropriate as well in the early stage, in the planning stage, or try to figure out what product or what service you're going to offer. In general, towards the early stage, in general, it's going to be blue ocean or design thinking or creativity or ideation, which we have covered before the midterm exams. Business model canvas become very, very useful in the late stage once you understand what product and service you're going to offer, as well as having a minimum viable product and gone through a few iterations already. Mid stages, you've gone through a few iterations of minimum viable product. Late stage, maybe you at version 7 or version 8 or so, in more advanced kind of stages, then business model canvas start to kick in. Okay, we'll take a 15 minutes break, and then we'll come back after break. Hopefully we'll cover business model canvas, and then we'll jump into, if we have time, we'll jump into designing and developing our own Android app. Yeah, you'll be surprised how easy it is to develop your own Android apps or iOS app. It doesn't matter. iOS or Android is pretty much just as easy as each other. Okay, we'll take a 15 minutes break. Okay, can you hear me? Anyone, please respond.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, good. Okay, let's continue where we have. Before we jump into business model canvas, maybe I'll just summarize the midterm exams and so on. Basically, try to help you guys understand where your weakness or your misunderstanding are, and hopefully corrects it. So the results of the midterm, I won't go into the midterms in details. The results of the midterm, you can see most people, quite a big section of people managed to get above 70%, some in the 80, and some in the early 90s. But quite surprisingly, quite a few managed to just reach the 50% part, yeah, around something like 22.5 is 50%. So a few people managed to get below that, yeah. So a few people managed to only get 21 and 20 question, around say 20 question and 21 right. So they just about fail in terms of the midterm exam. But in general, majority of people managed to get above 50%. Median around so like 33 out of 45. And an average around so like 31 question right out of 45 questions. So majority of people where they got their answer wrong. So here, frequently missed question. So the worst was this here, only 14 students out of 64 students managed to get it right. Basically, the question is, of the 8 themes of desirable behavior, which is most important? I think it was not too clear, but if you look at the list, it should you should see that commitment, perseverance, as well as determination is the correct answer. A lot of you, 25 of you answered determination, perseverance, as well as tolerance to risk, and 12 of you answered commitment, perseverance, motivation. So slightly off. And a lot of you, well, actually 11 of you, so that's 17% of the people who sat the exams answered none of the above. Yeah, so majority of you got that particular question wrong. Some of you managed to get it right, 14 of you managed to get it right. The next, actually, this is the worst question. Question about the World Economic Forum. Which of the following is not key for efficient-driven economy? Only 12 of you managed to get that right. The right answer is innovation. So don't forget, you have 3 stages of development. The efficient stage is the middle stage. Yeah. Middle stage, they do not need innovation. Yeah, so innovation is the next stage. But whatever efficiency has, it should also contain all the previous stage, which is also including unskilled labor. So 37 of you managed to get that wrong. The previous stage to efficient driven is you have unskilled labor, natural resources, labor market needs to be efficient, higher education and training and so on. Yeah, it's efficiency driven market do not have what is the next stage, which is innovation driven. Yeah, so the right answer to this particular question It's happened to be innovation. Let's see what else most of you managed to get wrong. So we answered that one, only 12 managed to get it right. We answered this one, only 14 managed to get it right. Next one here, only 22 managed to get right. I think all the other ones still quite high. So 22 is, because Vietnam is highly collective culture, you can deduce from Hofstede research that Vietnam is also high power distance. So 22 of you managed to get it right. A lot of you managed to get, 14 of you managed to get it wrong, or 22%. Basically choosing both individualism culture and a high context communication culture. Yeah. So because Vietnam is a high power distance culture is the right answer to that one. What else you managed to misunderstand as well during this course? 26 here. Only 26 managed to get it right. So R&D is beneficial to all companies. Yeah, I think a lot of you managed to only answer technology companies. It doesn't matter whether it's small companies, large companies, private companies, or any companies. Research and development, you need to research and develop your products. Yeah? So all company needs R&D, not just technology companies needs R&D. Even trading companies, sales and marketing companies, you still need to do research and development. So every company, and I think most of you managed to get it right, 26 managed to get it right, but some of you answered 17 or 26, 27% answered technology companies. Some of you answered, 20% of you answered small companies. Yeah, so that's incorrect. Any other misunderstanding during the midterm exam? Let's see. 26%. The next misunderstanding is this 29%. Only 29 managed to get it right. Do entrepreneur firm add to employment growth in an economy? Of course they do. In fact, they do it significantly. Yeah. Small, medium-sized or entrepreneurial firm are the biggest employer in Vietnam. Yeah, they employ more people than large firms and so on. Yeah, so significantly only in large companies. So that's wrong. 50 of you managed to get that wrong, which is about 23% of you. Some, but not a lot. In fact, it is incorrect. In Vietnam, like I said, majority of or jobs are created by small, medium-sized enterprise or entrepreneurial firms in general. Large firms in general does not have a lot of growth or does not employ as a percentage of employer in Vietnam. The largest employer are the small, medium-sized enterprises or entrepreneurial firms. What else? Next lowest is 30 of you managed to get it right. Which is not a type of corporate venturing. Social venturing, of course, social entrepreneurship. Yeah. Corporate venturing, there were many various different names, private equity venturing, harvest venturing. If you remember, there's that table which lists the different kind of corporate venturing. And social venturing is not one of that column within the table. There were 4 columns, and the 4 columns are pretty much these 4 titles here. Okay, hopefully you can see where you made your mistakes, where majority of you made your mistakes, and hopefully you understand where you made those mistakes as well. Okay. We'll get back to the lecture now. So before the breaks, we cover all of the Fantastic Five on modern business models. Yeah, there's a lot of good points in the various different models. Lots of advantages in general. So please try to make the same, not make the same old-fashioned mistakes where you, the founder, thinks that you know everything. You're the one who have to create a product and a service in a startup. In general, you need to be producing what the customers needs. Yeah, that is most important. And in general, you need to plan failure within your business plan. Yeah, so in general, by having a minimum viable product, you will limit how much loss is created each time you fail. Yeah, so by failing fast and as cheaply as possible, you have the opportunity to iterate or improve on your products. And maybe by version 5 or version 10 of your products will be perfect for the market itself. Because each iteration, like clean tech assignment, your score will only go up as it gets better and better as you improve from your mistakes. Not only that, we cover that majority of these modern business model in general tends to cover the early stage or the mid stage when it comes to a startup in general. Whereas the business model canvas in general are good for the later stage. Once you understand what you're doing, business model canvas will kick in and will be important. So we'll cover why, and maybe you can figure out why yourself. To me, it's basically quite obvious once you understand what a business model canvas is. Also, sometimes known as Austin Well business model canvas, because the author or the inventor of this business model canvas is called Austin Well. So in this chapter, we will cover Austin Well's business model canvas, as well as example of application of the business model canvas, as well as an exercise for you to do by yourself or within your eBiz Hub team itself to maybe draft up a business model canvas. But like I said, business model canvas is a lot more useful once you have a business plan, once you know what you're doing. If you do not know what you're doing and so on, lean startup or design thinking or blue ocean is a lot better for you to work on rather than the business model canvas. Business model canvas is mainly useful at the later stage when you want to strategize, improve on your market share or improve on your revenue, your cost model, and your partnerships and so on. Okay, we'll cover the Austin Well business model itself. Austin Well business model canvas pretty much simplify managing a business, or what managing a business is all about. It's simplified by decomposing all businesses down to 9 different sections to cover. Let's double check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 sections in total. The first section is the customer segment. Yeah, so you need to understand which segment is your customers, or you have multiple customer segment, or you have one segment itself. So if you're serving the public itself, consumers and so on, maybe you have a segment for teenager, segment for university kind of age group, and you have segment for adults, and you have a different segment for the elderlies and so on. Yeah, so you can decompose your business, or at least your customers, down into different segments, and hence you can provide each segment with their own product or services, whichever is needed. So an organizer in general tends to serve one or several customer segments. Yeah, there's no need for you to stick to only one. Where possible, by spreading to other customer segments, you can only increase your revenue as such. So separate to a customer segment, you need to have some kind of value proposition to serve to your customers itself. So each customer segment might have a different value proposition. So you might have a product or service for the kids, schools kind of age, and a separate product line for teenagers and university age, and then people in employment, and then the elderly, and so on. So in general, each customer is, and pretty much that's what all business is about. It's providing or providing some kind of product or some kind of service to customers, where customers are willing to pay you to provide that service for them. So it seeks to solve customers' problems, and not only that, satisfy the customer's needs with value propositions. So different customers segment might have different value proposition. Yeah, not necessarily every segment has to have their own value proposition. Maybe two segments can share the same value proposition, but in general, it allows you to see visually, and not only that, strategize. Different segment, maybe they do require different value proposition. Next is you need to be able to have some kind of communication channel with your customers, to provide them, or to even let them see your value proposition to solve their problems. So value proposition are delivered to customers through some kind of communication channel, or some kind of distribution channel, or some kind of sales channel. It could be high street shops, or it could be e-commerce through websites, or it could be through m-commerce through mobile phones, could be through emails, could be social networking like Facebook. The communication channel or distribution channels, or even the sales channel, can be there can be multiple as well for different segments. And not only that, it can be different value proposition needs different communication channel. Yeah, so things like if it's service through the internet, then you do it through the internet. If you have like a high street shops, similar to mobile world in Vietnam, for example, it does have a sales channel through the e-commerce and website, but it also has the high street shops as well. The Thế giới di động, they have both sales channels as well. Separate to sales channel, you need to be able to have a relationship, or some kind of communication relationship with your customers itself. So a customer relationship, how you communicate, how you interact with your customers. So customers' relationship are important, and they are established and maintained with each and every customer segment. Yeah, it can be done through email, it can be done through TV, internet, website, blogs, through YouTube, kind of vlogs. Could be various different ways in which you have, or you form some kind of relationship with your customers. Separate to the customer segments and the communication and distribution, as well as relationship and value proposition, you need to be able to get paid at the end of the day. If you don't have revenue, then basically who's going to pay the bill at the end of the day? So you need to have some kind of revenue stream as well, that the customers will pay for the service or the value proposition which you have created and delivered to them, as well as having a relationship between you and with them. So some kind of revenue stream results from the providing the value proposition. successfully offered to the customers. So far there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a 4 more channel. Yeah. So every business can be simplified into these 9 channels. So far we covered more than 50% of these different channels. So the next channel is the key resources. Yeah, you need to have some kind of resources, raw material or employee to be able to build your value proposition. It doesn't have to be built. If it's a service company, you need to have people, employees, and offices and so on to provide that service to, or that value proposition to the customers. So key resources are important. These are the assets required to be offered or delivered the previously described elements, such as the value proposition, as well as the transportation and the relationship with the customers. You have to have these key resources. So separate to key resources, you need to have key activities as well. What do you do? Are you a manufacturer? If you're a manufacturer, you are manufacturing or fabricating the value proposition using the raw material of your key resources and then delivering it to the customers. So key activities are the main services that is required to offer and deliver the value proposition to the customers or customer segments. Separate to the key activities is the key partners. Yeah? You need to have other business partners. You need to be able to outsource some of your function in your businesses to other parties, yeah, or partners. Yeah? So not everything are done in-house by your key activities, but some of it can be done outsourced to an external partner. Yeah, so key partners are the activities or that you have outsourced, and some of these resources are acquired outside of your companies. Yeah? So these are the key activities are your internal activities, and key partners are your outsourced or external activities. And then lastly, you have one more block left, and that is just the costs. At the end of the day, you need to be able to pay your employees to perform the key activities, as well as all the marketing channels, as well as transport channels and so on, as well as paying your key partners when you outsource certain work to them. So you need to have some kind of cost structure. Yeah? So every business has a cost structure, and the business model element results in some kind of cost structure. So provided all these services, there'll be some kind of cost structure. And as long as your revenue, which is here in this box, is greater than your cost structure, then you will be making a profit. But if revenue is below your cost structure, you are making a loss. So all these structures and channels and so on, as you see, it decomposes a very complicated startup or business into very simpler 9 boxes where you can strategize. Yeah, so just this diagrams, you remap it to a big table. Yeah, so just reflect the table, flip the table so you can see it in 3D, and then draw the boxes around it. Yeah, so here are the boxes. Maybe here it should be bigger for some reason, it's smaller for some reason. So here, partners are the rings. Key activities are the one which shuffling or digging a hole. Resources are resources. Cost structure is a bill. Revenue is just a cash machine. Distribution channels are just this truck. Relationships is this heart. Customers are a person, and value proposition is just a present. Yeah, so you simplify it down to just 9, all complex business can be decomposed down to 9 different boxes. Yeah? Customer segments, customer relationship, distribution channel, value proposition, key resources, key activities, partner network, key partners, revenue stream, and cost structure. The other thing, the power of the Austin Wells business model is all this needs to be on removable media. You cannot be using pen and pencil. Maybe you can use a pencil, but you cannot use pen or ink on the business model canvas. You need to be able to rub things out or remove things. So here, you can see here, example using sticky notes. You can write on the sticky notes. You can add more sticky notes to represent more customer segment. You use different color sticky notes to represent different customer segments, for example. And not only that, you can use whiteboard and the ink on whiteboard and so on. But business model canvas is a lot more powerful if you use removable media, such as you see here. You cannot have it in ink. Yeah, the point of business model canvas is for you to plan, for you to change, for you to be able to strategize. Yeah, so in general, you see from now on, everything is in removable media. So to allow me to have the flexibility to adapt my business to whatever the market or the environment are changing. And not only that, to make things a lot more clearer, I can use different color ink or different sticky notes like what is on this particular example here. So let's go through an example how to use Austin Wells business model canvas. So we'll start a business. It's going to be a fintech of some sort, financial tech of some sort. I mean, you guys are startup. Yeah, one of the biggest problems startups tend to have is a shortage of capital. So we will start some kind of business to service customers like yourself, students who have ideas. Maybe some of you have amazing ideas on starting a business, but then you need finance to be able to make your business happen. Yeah, so this is some kind of model or business to allow some of these ideas to be financed. So who are Kiva business models customer segment? Yeah. One segment is wealthy Westerners. So I can create some kind of website called kiva.org. And then I can list or post all your eBiz business plan to the website. So each web page or each profile has detail of your business, and wealthy Westerners can be able to browse through all the business plan and choose in which is an interesting business plan to be able to invest in, for example. So one of the customer segment is wealthy Westerners, for example. Another customer segment is poor entrepreneurs, student like yourself, who have amazing ideas for businesses and so on, but maybe you might not have the finance necessary to start your business. So this website, or sometimes known as microfinance, because in general, these loans, especially if starting business in Vietnam, is relatively quite cheap. You can start most businesses just with a couple of $1,000, US dollars and so on, unlike most other countries around the world. Vietnam can be a very cheap place to start a business. So hence, In general, you only need the so-called microfinance or micro loans. So another segment is entrepreneur or student like yourself who needs loans. Yeah. So this is, I have two value proposition. One is providing a website to list businesses to wealthy Westerners, and two is to provide loans to entrepreneur to be able to invest in their idea or to make their idea happen. So you see here, it's done on removable media, on sticky notes. If I have more customer segments, and I'll just write it on sticky notes and I'll stick it on onto here. Not only that, I use different color here as well. You see yellow is the value position from the website, and the blue is the value proposition from the loans, the lending business, or the two different customer segments, wealthy Westerners in the US and Europe, and poor entrepreneurs like yourself in Vietnam, for example. What am I doing? So at the end of the day, I need to be able to make some money. Yeah? Otherwise, there's no point doing this particular business. So hence, there needs to be some kind of revenue streams. Yeah. So I can take optional donation on top of the loan from wealthy Westerners. But then on top of that, the loans can be interest. I can take a small amount of interest from the entrepreneurs as well, with the donation subsidizing if the interest happen to be quite low. So potentially there are two revenue streams possible. One is extra donation, which wealthy Westerners donate to kiva.org. I can use Patreon website to allow them to pay me on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, as well as if I do charge interest on these loans, I might have a small revenue stream come from the interest from the loans as well. Else, it might be, the loan might be interest-free, and maybe I base my business model mainly everything on donation from wealthy Westerners through the website or through Patreon, for example. But to be able to make all this happen, I need to have key resources, key activities, and partner networks, as well as cost structure and maybe customer relationship as well. So you see here, I added quite a few, also removable media, drawn onto arrows, onto these sticky notes as well, to make it a little bit more clearer, the flows and so on. But you see the value of using removable media when it comes to Austin business model canvas. So to provide all these services, I need to have resources. The resource is the website, kiva.org platform, for example. But I need to be able to in-source, I need to be able to have people to be able to stream through all the business plan or the eBizHub business plan which you submit into eBizHub, for example. So some kind of streaming of microfinance institution as well. So I might partner with banks or high street banks to have offices where I can go and have meeting with entrepreneurs who are interested in raising a loan, for example. So I need to be able to screen staff to be able to screen through these microfinance institutions, as well as staff to do some risk management to be able to follow up on these loans to make sure that the loans are paid back to the wealthy Westerners on time and the right amount as well at the end of the day. Separate to that, I also need other services from my outsourcing partners, such as maybe PayPal or Visa or whichever kind of payment, maybe even Zalo Pay or Momo. These kind of payment services to be able to allow Westerners, wealthy Westerners, to transfer money to the entrepreneur in Vietnam, for example. In addition, I also need these local, these high street stores or high street banks to be able to provide or to have an office where I can meet entrepreneurs to talk to them and provide loans to them as well. So I need to have partnerships with the local microfinance institutions as well. But to do all this, it will cost me money. To have staff, I have to pay their salaries towards the end of the day. To have website, I need to be able to pay the cloud hosting as well as the web developer to be able to create these websites. And in addition, I have to pay the transfer services like PayPal and so on at the end of the day as well. So there needs to be some kind of cost structure as well. The cost structure will consist of payment for the platform, as well as web developers, pay the staff to do the streaming, as well as the risk management, and pay the interest on PayPal and the local micro institutions, the microfinance institutions, and so on. Relationship is not necessary. All the relationship can be done through Kiva.org or through the micro institution itself. So in this particular case, customer's relationship is not, or extra customer relationship is not necessary. The relationships already formed through the website as well as micro institution. But if you need things like Facebook and Instagram and so on, that is also possible as well. You can put it into these boxes if you need to. Okay, so you see it's relatively straightforward how to use Austin Wells business model canvas. If I want to add extra segments, so not necessarily full entrepreneur, but maybe even businesses, small business loans, for example, and maybe through small business loans, not through microfinance institution, but through actual banks as well. So I can add an extra business segment or customer segment just by writing on sticky notes, stick it onto this table, and that's it. It's meant to be removable. It's meant to be able to allow you to move things around as well. And as you see, all the colors and so on can be chosen so that it can be clearly seen. You can see your entire business all in one A4. And you can manage your entire business all in one A4 page. But not only that, you can move things around as well. The business adapt or evolve with the business environment and with the situation. So in general, using removable media is very, very important and very, very effective when it comes to Austin Wells business model canvas. Let's look at another example. So instead of using sticky notes like what we saw here, maybe this time we'll use pencil, for example. With pencils, I can rub things out. Maybe not necessarily pencil, but I can always use whiteboard and rubbable ink using whiteboard. So this is another microfinance kind of business model. And so the business is called Grameen Banking for the Poor. And we'll go through the Austin Wells business model canvas. First, customer segment, our poor entrepreneurs, very similar to the previous business plan. But this time, the value proposition is micro loans. So it's not necessarily microfinancing as wealthy Westerners and so on, but these are micro loans through branches, could be banks branches. And the communication or the relationship is through personal. So the managers from the microfinance or the micro loan banks meets up with the face-to-face with the entrepreneur and talks to the entrepreneur. So it's a person or face-to-face kind of relationship. Revenue is charged through interest, so these loans. So these are a little bit more professionally based. So is the next step up to microfinance. Similar to what I kind of mentioned earlier, that in the microfinance we can have an extra customer segments like small businesses where we can do formal loans with formal interest from these loans as well. Whereas in this particular new business plan, it is a formal loans, yeah, so it's a separate segment itself. This could be in addition to the Kiva business as well, if you look at it that way. So revenues are charged through interest rate, but then you need to be able to have all the other necessary activities to be able to offer the value proposition to your customers. So your key resources are your capital. Yeah, every bank needs some amount of capital, but not only that, your brand as well as your trust. Yeah, I mean, you're offering a banking services and so on. You need to have branches to be able to meet with the entrepreneur and provide loans as well. So your key resources are your brand, your branches, your trust, as well as the capital which you use to be able to provide the microloans to the entrepreneurs. In addition, you need to have key activities. So these are the staff you need to hire to offer these services to your customers. So you need managers to manage the loan risk, which you have in entrepreneurs, but you also need the collecting services or staff to be able to do the money transfer as well as collecting payment, the interest payment from the entrepreneur back to the bank itself. In addition, so typical of a lot of these banking businesses for entrepreneurs in general is government tends to be involved. They will subsidize these activities because starting businesses or entrepreneur are big employer of people or create a lot of jobs in general. So governments in general tends to be very, very active, and hence in Vietnam we have this so-called startup nation policy for a reason. Because in general, startups create a lot of jobs, substantial amount of jobs. So it's part of the government's job is to create more jobs for the poor or for the population as such. So sometimes government will subsidize these activities to help create more startups, more of these startups. So hence, more of these startups will create more jobs, more economy as well. So in doing all this, yeah, it will create some kind of cost structure at the end of the day as well. So the cost structure is the salary you need or I have to pay to my staff, as well as because I have to borrow capital from investors and so on. It will be also the cost of capital as well. So as long as the interest payment, as well as other subsidies from governments through this revenue stream is greater than the cost structure, then I will be making a profit. But if revenue is lower than the cost structure, lower than what I'm paying to my staff, as well as paying to other investors, then I will be in a loss position. So once again, you can see here, everything is written in pencils or in media, because that's the main point of what Awesome Wow, the power of Awesome Wow's business model is allowing you to adapt, allowing you to make changes, allowing you to strategize, and you can add more customer segments. So typically, in banks, not only banks provide loans, sometimes they sell insurance as well. So maybe another customer segment for insurance, or maybe another customer segment for money transfer as well. So since you have branches and maybe ATMs and so on, you might have another customer segment to expand in terms of money transfer as well. So hence, that's the power of the Austin Well business model as such. If I stick in money transfer and insurance, I will need some kind of distribution channel, and maybe I need some kind of relationship, maybe through websites, and I will need value proposition as well, insurance products as well as money transferring products like an internet account or an ATM card, those kind of services which I can offer to a different customer segment. And then behind that, I need the various different key activities and key partners as well as key resources. And each one of these will cost me some amount of money as well. So in general, the power of Austin Well's business model canvas is that I can adapt the business model very quickly and easy, because there's only 9 very, very simple boxes where I need to fill in the different customer segment and value proposition and so on. I can see everything all in one place. Okay, so as an exercise, you can do a business model canvas for your eBiz Hub assignment, but like I said, Austin Well business model canvas is a lot more powerful for the later stage kind of business. It's when you already know what you're doing. It's not for the early stage where you're still trying to figure out what kind of products or what kind of service or who are your customers. Yeah, it's not helpful then. But once you have a business like here, and you need to strategize in terms of coming up with new revenue streams and so on, or new customer segments, or new value proposition, then Austin Well's business model canvas becomes more powerful. Yeah, so up to you if you want to use this in your eBiz Hub assignment or not. But most of you probably at the very early stage, so maybe Austin Well business model canvas is not necessary, at least at your stage anyhow. Anyhow, I provided a exercise for you to do if you want. Yeah, it's not, it's optional. You don't have to do it. Yeah, fill in your eBiz Hub company name and go through each one of these activities and so on. Fill in the activities, and by the end of all the activities, you end up with a filled out Austin Well business model canvas. But like I said earlier, it might not be necessary if you are an early stage startup. Yeah, so it's not relevant for you as such. Activities, you just need to go through this and answer various different questions. How do you acquire customers? After you landed a new customers, how do you plan to relate to them? So this is relationship to the customers and manage this relationship. Yeah, so this is customer segment. This is customer relationship. How do you charge customers? That's just revenue stream. What is your revenue model? Recurring revenue, transactional revenue, project revenue, or services revenue? How much do you charge your customers? That's revenue stream as well. Can you calculate your revenue stream from the next month or quarter or annual? What assets are available? So these are your key assets to you or under your control. Other questions? Who are your key partners? Yeah, that's where the key partners box is. And what key activities? So that's where your staff's going to be. Do you need to engage to deliver your value proposition? What are your fixed costs? So that's just the cost box here. And what are the variable costs? Also the cost box. Can you calculate your total costs for next month, quarter, annual? Does your revenue forecast demonstrate increase in profitability if your revenue stream is larger than your cost stream, then you're in profit. If it's less, then you are in a loss position. You can count profitability towards the end of each forecasting period. Once you answer all these questions, then you fill in the canvas itself. So pretty much by answering the question, you just fill in these boxes as is. Then the next activities or the next exercise, continue your business model. Does it work? Are you profitable or are you loss making? Do revenue outweigh the costs? Try estimate the revenues and costs for the next month or two, or the first month of sales. If you are without revenue for now, what are the risks to your, risks to your business model? I mean, that's the point of the business model canvas. You see everything all in one slide or one page. So you can see the risks involved in your business as well. What part of your business model are most critical to your business critical path through the business model canvas to grow in a profitable manner? You can add extra customer segments, other value propositions, and so on to add extra revenue streams as well. Are there things that you that can or should be changed to strengthen your business model or to reduce its risk? And this is another power of the business model canvas. Since it's on removable media, you stick new sticky notes or remove sticky notes of it. It's too risky, or stick new sticky notes to strengthen your business model itself. So very important that it needs to be on removable media. Activity number 4, clarify your business model assumption. Check each response in the model canvas against various different criteria. How do you know what you wrote in each building block is true? Yeah, if it's not so true, then basically outline the assumptions which you made. Have you made an assumptions, or do you have solid evidence? If you have solid evidence, write it into the box as well. In the form of documented facts. In the case that you have facts, label response as factual and make notes to your evidence. And in case you have made assumptions, label response assumptions. So once you do that, or even use different color, on that one pager, you can see it's very clearly your critical path. Is it assumptions or is it factual and so on? You use different color pen for each, for facts and assumptions and so on. You know what is clearly a fact or a critical path, or what you should try to get more information on if it's assumptions. Clarify your business model, list the assumptions if you made any assumptions, list the facts and the evidence and so on. Hopefully it will make your business model clear, or your awesome wow business model canvas a lot more clearer. Prepare to meet your customers, prepare materials needed before you meet your potential customers, sales materials such as website, product information, brochures, customers presentation, demos, prototypes, giveaways, those kind of things. Then you need to focus on the different channel strategy description as well. Maybe you have a different customer segments and so on. So focus on your sales process. You know, typical sales process, you have like a funnel, you meet 100 people, next stage you might end up with talking to 10 people. By the time you reach the buyer stage, you might have 1 or 2 buyers at the end of this so-called sales funnel as such. So the sales process usually is a funnel kind of progress. You kind of see this in your clean tech assignment as well. You see people who are interested in your products and actual buyer of your products are different. It goes down through this so-called sales channel and funnel. You can have economics buyers, other stakeholders involved in your customer's buying process. Step in and duration of the sales process. Different products, different services takes different time to sell. Expected deal size, as well as your own pricing strategy or pricing options as well. If people are buying on the bulk or single items, that kind of thing. Activity number 6, update your documents. Documents for your sales roadmap or your sales funnel by answering the following questions. Who are your stakeholders involved in the customer's buying process? Who typically pay or play the role of the influencers as well as economic buyers? What are the stages and the length of each and every sales cycle? The prospective buyers, then it goes down the sales funnel. The next stage to prospective, and maybe actual sales, the first stage itself. So what are the profile of the typical buyers and what are the best sales strategy? So these are very useful. But like I said, Awesome Business Model Canvas is only useful for later stage, more advanced stage kind of businesses where you know these things. Yeah? As a startups, when you're just thinking about products and services and so on, you might not know these things too clearly. Who are your buyers and who are your economic buyers and so on. So these information you might not have when you're at the very early stage when it comes to startup. Activity number 6, update your documents, create position statements using the following templates. For who, for what, or who is involved in what. Our product is blah, blah, blah. That provides certain pros and cons, unlike other competitors. And we have assembled, created, invented a product that is 100 times better than our competitors, for example. Once you have everything updated into your business model canvas and so on, you can see everything all in one shot. But it needs to be on removable media. And then lastly, activity number 7, plan your next step. Take the required step to implement your business model. Activities, so-called deliverable, deadlines, and who is of the co-founders who are responsible for each one of these. Yeah? So your developed revenue forecast, that's going to be the hustler. Put together a Marcom strategy to generate demands and shorten the sales cycle. This is going to be your hipster, your sales managers, and so on. Create a product roadmap. That's going to be your hacker, who's responsible. So let's just write it down anyway. Hacker, hipster, for sales strategy, hustler. Continue to engage customers on your initial target list. This is going to be the hipsters, your sales manager. And lastly, plan for growth. Planning and so on, that needs to be your hustler. Deadlines, deliverable when on the deadlines. In that way, you can see who is responsible. If you don't have people responsible with deadlines and with deliverable, then it is unclear who is responsible, who have actual delivery, finished their work, and who has not. Yeah. So once you have something like this with clearly deliverable targets, as well as deadlines, as well as each and every one who is responsible for different things, then you made it very clear that and not only that, you can follow up on these things a lot better as well. Okay, anyhow, we run out of time anyhow. We don't have enough time to do Android apps and so on today. Maybe we do it in the following weeks, but next week, yeah, just a reminder, next week will be presentation week. Those who were chosen by the class to present, these are the topics, these are the individuals. They will be presented in this order as well. So the highest will go first, go down to the lowest voted will go last. Yeah. Some of you have made it clear to me that they don't want to present. That's totally fine. Like I said, it's optional. It just means you don't get the extra 10%. Those who present will not only get 5% for their presentation automatically, but in addition, the class can vote and give you an extra up to a maximum of another 5%. So in total, potentially you can achieve an extra 10%, which could mean an extra grade. Yeah. So it's a step up from say a B to an A or a C to a D, for example. 10% can be quite substantial. It could be a especially for people for a passing grade or the next grade up. It will kick you into the next grade up. Okay, any question from anyone before we finish? No question? You sure? No question? Okay, so if there's no question, hopefully next week, those who we will reward with 10% bonus points will do the work. They will do the teaching for me. Yeah, so next week will be my kind of my day off. Yeah, and I will reward those who help me teach the class with the various different chosen topics and so on, which the class voted for. We will reward you with 10% for helping teaching the class. Okay, so good luck next week on your presentation for those who wants to do the presentation. Like I said, you don't have to send the presentation to me in advance. You can bring the presentation on the day to the presentation. Yeah, but everyone needs to submit in the presentation as their individual assignment at the end of semester. Yeah, 2 weeks after the end of semester, you will submit all your assignment, from your individual assignment to your clean tech assignment to your EBIS assignment. It will be all submitted on Turnitin. I will send you, post the link for you to submit in. You log in. Everyone needs to log in and submit their individual. Only the group leader needs to submit the team assignment, which is clean tech assignment and the EBIS sub assignment. Okay. Any questions? Hopefully that's clear. If there are no questions, I will see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.